Friends, if you want to watch the amazing and inspiring movie Secretariat 2010 in English, then you must like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we bring you the best updates, reviews, and all the interesting details about your favorite movies. Friends, in today's video, we are going to talk about the incredible movie called Secretariat. This is not just any ordinary film. It's a true story that will touch your heart and leave you feeling motivated. We will talk about what this movie is all about, where you can watch it, and all the fascinating facts surrounding it. I will tell you which OTT platform you can stream it on or which satellite channel is airing it, so you won't miss your chance to watch this masterpiece. We will also go deep into the behind-the-scenes details, the technical department, the brilliant music team, how the pre-production was handled, where and how the filming took place, and how the post-production shaped the final product you see on screen. We will discuss the budget of this film, how much was spent to bring this beautiful story to life, and how it performed at the box office, whether it was a hit or missed expectations. Of course, we will also talk about the story itself. I will give you a short and fun review of the plot, so you can understand why this movie has won the hearts of so many people. Apart from the story, we will go over the fascinating facts about this film, the exciting storyline, and the talented star cast. I will tell you about the actors, how they performed, and which actor played which character. You will get to know about the key performances and what makes each role stand out in the film. So friends, I really request you to stay with us and watch this video till the very end, because we have so much to share with you. This is going to be a fun and detailed journey into the world of Secretariat 2010. So sit back, relax, and let's dive right into it. Let's start the video. All right, friends, get ready because I'm about to take you on a thrilling, galloping ride through the plot of Secretariat 2010. And trust me, this story is as exciting as a photo finish at the racetrack. The movie opens by pulling us right into the world of horse racing. But don't worry if you're not a fan of the sport. This is a story about heart, determination, and defying the odds. We meet Penny Chenery, a seemingly ordinary housewife, but oh no, she's about to become anything but ordinary. When her father, who owns a horse farm, falls ill, Penny steps up to save the family business. Imagine this, a woman in the male-dominated racing world of the 1970s, surrounded by skepticism, whispers, and raised eyebrows. But does she back down? Not a chance. The first major turning point hits when Penny trusts her gut and brings on board a tough, eccentric French-Canadian trainer named Lucien Lauren. These two together are like a firecracker. Sparks fly, personalities clash, but they share one mission: to make Secretariat, their promising young horse, a champion. Now here's where it gets really good. We see the classic underdog, or underhorse, narrative, but it's laced with humor, charm, and moments of real tension. The film doesn't play around with fancy time jumps or nonlinear tricks. It gallops forward with a clear, focused pace, mirroring the intensity and momentum of the racing world. We follow Secretariat's journey from an unproven colt to a racing legend, and along the way, the emotional stakes keep rising. There are conflicts everywhere. Penny battling financial pressures, navigating the doubts of those around her, facing personal sacrifices, and of course, dealing with the unpredictable world of horse racing itself. One of the most exciting parts is when Secretariat begins running in races, and each event feels like a mini drama. Will he win? Will he stumble? Will the world finally see what Penny already knows? That this horse is destined for greatness? A key emotional punch comes as Penny fights not just for victories on the track, but for respect off the track. She's a woman pushing against the expectations of her time, standing tall in boardrooms filled with skeptical men, all while balancing her family life. The movie builds beautifully toward the iconic Triple Crown, 3 legendary races that only the very best horses can conquer. And wow, does the narrative deliver here? By the time Secretariat reaches the Belmont Stakes, the third and final race, the tension is sky high. Even if you already know the outcome, the way the movie unfolds makes your heart race. The final race sequence is shot with such emotional and visual power that it feels like time stands still as Secretariat charges ahead, not just winning, but dominating in a way that leaves the crowd and the audience breathless. What's brilliant is how the film doesn't just focus on the horse or the races. It intertwines themes of perseverance, loyalty, and vision. Penny's journey, Secretariat's journey, they reflect each other, both proving that greatness comes from pushing past the limits others set for you. The narrative delivers a steady build of stakes, challenges, and triumphs, never needing to jump around in time or use tricky storytelling. It's all about the raw, honest, thrilling momentum of the underdog rising to glory. Watching Secretariat unfold is like being part of an epic, pulse-pounding adventure, where every setback makes the victory sweeter and every moment at the finish line feels like a triumph for anyone who's ever dared to dream big. Let's dive right into the heart of Secretariat 2010 by talking about the characters, because let me tell you, they are not just there to stand around and watch horses run. First, we have Penny Chenery, the woman who steals the show and carries the emotional weight of the story. When we meet Penny, she's a housewife juggling family life, but as soon as she steps back onto her father's horse farm, you can feel the spark light up. She's determined, sharp, and passionate, but what's most fascinating is how she grows. At first, Penny is unsure, surrounded by people who doubt her. But little by little, she transforms into a fearless businesswoman and a true believer in Secretariat's potential. She's not just fighting for a horse, she's fighting for her father's legacy, for her family's future, and for her own voice in a world that wants to silence her. Watching her push past every obstacle, financial, personal, and social, is like watching someone rise from the shadows and step into her full power. Then there's Lucien Lauren, the trainer who at first seems like a quirky side character, but quickly becomes a crucial part of the emotional core. Lucien is grumpy, colorful, and stubborn, but under that rough exterior is someone deeply passionate about horses and winning. His relationship with Penny is so entertaining to watch. They clash, they argue, but they also push each other to be better. Lucien undergoes his own transformation, moving from a retired, washed-up trainer to a man rediscovering his passion and sharpening his skills for one last shot at glory. And of course, we cannot forget Secretariat himself, the horse who is almost treated like a character in his own right. While he can't speak, the way the film frames his presence, his spirit, and his racing energy gives him a personality that leaps off the screen. Secretariat represents raw, unstoppable talent, but more importantly, he reflects the hopes and dreams of everyone around him. Watching him grow from an untested colt to a racing legend mirrors Penny's journey, making the bond between them feel magical. Other side characters also add color and depth. Penny's family, especially her husband and children, bring emotional tension, as they sometimes struggle to understand her obsession with the horse and the farm. There's also the team around Secretariat, the jockey, the stable hands, each adding small but meaningful layers to the story. What makes the character development so engaging is that no one stays static. Every major character is challenged, forced to make tough decisions, and changed by the journey they're on. Penny becomes a symbol of determination and vision. Lucien becomes the masterful trainer reborn. Even the minor characters reflect themes of loyalty, sacrifice, and belief. The relationships between the characters shape the entire emotional drive of the movie. Penny and Lucien's dynamic pushes the training to a higher level. Penny's bond with Secretariat drives the stakes of every race. Her tension with her family adds a layer of personal sacrifice that makes her victories bittersweet. Everyone's motivations, whether it's Penny wanting to prove herself, Lucien wanting to redeem himself, or Secretariat wanting, or rather, being driven, to win, feed into a larger narrative of chasing greatness. Together, these layered characters turn what could have been a simple sports story into a rich, emotional adventure filled with growth, connection, and unforgettable moments. Watching them unfold on screen is like watching a perfectly choreographed dance of ambition, heart, and transformation. All right, friends, buckle up because we're diving deep into the performances of Secretariat 2010, and let me tell you, this cast doesn't just act. They bring fire, heart, humor, and soul to every single scene. At the very center is Diane Lane as Penny Chenery, and she absolutely owns this role. Diane doesn't play Penny like a cardboard strong woman stereotype. She fills her with complexity. You can see her juggling so many emotions at once. The grief of losing her father, the weight of holding a family together, the thrill of believing in something everyone else doubts, and the quiet fear that maybe she's risking too much. Diane Lane brings such warmth and intensity that you feel like you're with Penny every step of the way. When she's walking into intimidating boardrooms, she doesn't puff herself up or make dramatic speeches. She holds her ground with subtlety, with eyes that sparkle with determination and a voice that stays calm but firm. And when she's at the track, watching Secretariat thunder down the dirt, you feel the adrenaline and the emotion pulsing through her. She gives the kind of performance where you forget you're watching an actress. You believe in her as a woman fighting for her horse, her family, and herself. Now, John Malkovich as Lucian Lauren? Oh, he's a pure delight. Malkovich takes what could have been a typical gruff old trainer role and makes it into something unforgettable. He's eccentric, he's prickly, he's hilarious, but he's also layered with vulnerability and passion. You watch Lucian transform from a man who's mostly given up on his best years to someone who's dragged back into the spotlight, and Malkovich plays that arc with just the right mix of humor and heart. His comic timing is spot on, especially when he's bantering with Penny or barking orders around the stable, but he also delivers the emotional weight when it matters. There's a sense that Lucian and Penny understand each other on a deep level, even when they're clashing, and Malkovich makes sure you feel that connection. And let's give some real love to the supporting cast, because they add so much richness to the story. Dylan Walsh as Penny's husband, Jack, brings a grounded, human perspective. He's not just the obstacle husband who tries to hold her back. Walsh plays him as a man genuinely torn between wanting to support his wife and worrying about how much she's sacrificing. There's a quiet tension in their scenes together that adds emotional depth to the family side of the story. Margot Martindale as Miss Ham is one of those performers who makes every scene better just by being in it. She brings warmth, humor, and loyalty, serving as a kind of emotional anchor for Penny, a reminder that not everyone doubts her. Then there's Otto Thorworth as Ron Turcotte, the jockey who rides Secretariat. Now, Otto was actually a real jockey in life, and that authenticity shows. He doesn't have big dramatic monologues, but his physicality and his focused presence in the racing scenes make him feel real. He's not just an actor playing a jockey. He is a jockey, and his connection with the horse comes across beautifully. You see the trust, the tension, and the thrill every time he's in the saddle, and that adds a layer of believability to the race sequences. Even the smaller roles, like the wealthy rival owners, the racing officials, the reporters, are played with just enough personality and energy to keep the world feeling vibrant and alive. Nobody in this cast is sleepwalking through their part. Every single performance, big or small, adds to the atmosphere, the stakes, and the emotional punch of the film. And let's not forget the unsung stars, the horses who play Secretariat. It's not easy to turn an animal into a cinematic presence, but the filmmakers and animal trainers manage to capture the horse's spirit so vividly that Secretariat feels like a true character. The human actors treat the horse with such genuine affection, focus, and intensity that you can't help but feel the bond radiating off the screen. Together, the cast elevates Secretariat from a basic sports drama into something emotionally powerful. They make you care, they make you laugh, they make you sweat through the tension of every race, and they make you believe. These performances aren't just about delivering lines. They're about embodying hopes, dreams, doubts, and triumphs. They bring the entire story to life, making it a movie that grabs you by the heart and won't let go. All right, friends, let's talk about the captain of this cinematic ship, the director of Secretariat, Randall Wallace, because he's the one steering every emotional turn, every thunderous race, and every quiet family moment that makes this movie so gripping. Wallace knows exactly what kind of story he's telling here. This isn't just a sports movie or just a historical biopic. It's an underdog tale, a celebration of determination, and a heart-pounding ride that has to balance intimate human drama with the raw, electric energy of the racetrack. And wow, does he deliver. From the very start, Wallace sets the tone with a mix of warmth and intensity. The mood never slips into cold, detached sports statistics. It's always rich with feeling. Whether we're watching Penny Chenery walk through the familiar halls of her father's stables or watching Secretariat's hooves tear up the dirt at full speed. There's a sense of awe that runs through the film, like the director wants you to not just understand, but feel the greatness of this horse and the people who believe in him. He crafts every scene so that you can sense the stakes, the tension, and the triumph, not just watch them. Stylistically, Wallace makes some really smart choices. The race scenes are shot with adrenaline-pumping energy, close-ups on the thundering hooves, wide shots that show the furious charge down the track, and just the right amount of slow motion at key moments to stretch out the tension so you're practically holding your breath. It's not flashy for the sake of being flashy. It's designed to pull you deep into the experience, to make you feel like you're on that racetrack, hearing the roar of the crowd and the pounding of every stride. But it's not just the big, dramatic moments that Wallace nails, it's the small, human ones too. The pacing of the film balances the high-energy races with quieter, emotional scenes where Penny wrestles with tough decisions, confronts doubters, or shares vulnerable moments with her family. Wallace knows when to let the camera linger on a glance, a hesitation, a silent realization. He's not rushing through the character work just to get to the next big event. That patience gives the movie heart, making sure the audience connects with the people, not just the victories. The shot composition also deserves some love. There's a clear visual style here, with warm, golden tones on the farm scenes that give everything a nostalgic, almost mythic feel, as if we're looking at a piece of Americana legend coming to life. The boardrooms and negotiation scenes have a colder, more formal look, emphasizing the battles Penny has to fight in the business world. And then the racetrack sequences explode with movement, color, and light, making you feel the contrast between the controlled world off the track and the wild, glorious power of Secretariat in motion. Wallace's narrative vision ties it all together beautifully. He's not trying to reinvent the underdog story. He's leaning into it with full-hearted sincerity. There's no ironic distance or cynicism here. The film believes in its story, and that belief radiates through every directorial choice. He makes sure that the audience is emotionally invested, that we care about Penny's risks, Lucien's comeback, the horse's legacy. Every scene builds on the last, driving the momentum forward like a racehorse picking up speed. And by the time we hit the final stretch, the Belmont Stakes, it feels like everything has been leading to this one epic payoff. What really makes Wallace's direction stand out is his ability to balance all the elements: human drama, sports excitement, historical context, emotional stakes, without letting one overwhelm the others. He's like a master conductor keeping an orchestra in perfect harmony, making sure that every part plays its role to create something powerful and unforgettable. You can tell he respects the real-life story, but he's also not afraid to push the cinematic moments to their full potential. Watching Secretariat under his direction isn't just watching a movie. It's stepping into a fully realized world where every detail, every shot, every beat of the story pulls you deeper into the thrill of the ride. All right, friends, let's get into the visual magic of Secretariat 2010, because the cinematography here doesn't just decorate the story. It drives the emotional power and immerses you right in the middle of the action. Dean Semler, the director of photography, pulls off a balancing act that makes the film feel both grand and intimate at the same time. And oh, does he make some stunning choices. First, let's talk about those race sequences, because they are absolute visual showstoppers. Semler doesn't just set up a camera on the sidelines and let the horses run past. No, he throws us into the race, giving us thrilling close-ups of pounding hooves, the flick of Secretariat's mane, and the fierce concentration on the jockey's face. There's a kinetic energy to the way these races are shot. The camera moves with the horses, hugging tight to their bodies, then pulling back for wide, sweeping shots that show the scale of the track and the roaring crowds. In the final stretch of each race, the cinematography ramps up the tension with sharp, rhythmic cuts and just the right touch of slow motion. So every viewer is perched on the edge of their seat, heart pounding, eyes locked on the finish line. But it's not just the races where the cinematography shines. The lighting and framing in the farm scenes are gorgeous, warm, and nostalgic, bathing the Chenery stables in golden light that feels almost mythic. Early morning shots with soft sunlight streaming through the barn windows, wide shots of Secretariat galloping across the pasture, Penny standing alone under a vast, open sky. These moments aren't just pretty, they create a sense of place, of history, of a world where something extraordinary is about to happen. Semler's use of natural light makes the farm feel alive, grounding the story in a real, tactile setting while also elevating it into something larger than life. Then there's the contrast in the business and boardroom scenes, where the lighting turns cooler, the framing becomes tighter, and the atmosphere gets heavier. You can feel the pressure Penny is under when she's facing skeptical investors or negotiating tricky deals, thanks to the more controlled, restrained camera work. The visual shift between the open, free world of the racetrack and the confined, sharp-edged world of corporate politics adds a brilliant layer to the storytelling. Without a single word, the cinematography is already telling you how Penny's world changes depending on where she stands. Let's not forget the quieter, emotional moments. Semler knows exactly when to pull back and let a wide frame tell the story, like when Penny watches Secretariat run, alone, feeling the weight of her choices, and when to go in close, capturing a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a quiet moment of connection between Lucien and the horse, or a burst of joy on the faces of the racing team. The careful use of close-ups pulls the audience deeper into the characters' emotional worlds, making sure we're not just watching from a distance, but right there with them, feeling every victory and every heartbreak. Visually striking moments are scattered all throughout the film. Think of the shot where Secretariat bursts through the final stretch at Belmont, framed like a mythic hero breaking through the pack, the sunlight gleaming off his chestnut coat. Think of the overhead shots of the racetrack, where you see the swirl of the crowd, the curve of the dirt, the tiny but powerful figure of the horse charging ahead. Every one of these moments is crafted to make you not just see the race, but experience its beauty, its tension, and its glory. The cinematography shapes the film's entire atmosphere, layering tension, awe, and emotional resonance into the story. It's the secret sauce that turns a good movie into a great one, making sure the visuals match the weight of the narrative and the intensity of the characters' journeys. Semler's camera choices elevate every beat of the film, ensuring that whether you're watching a quiet conversation in a dusty stable or the thunderous rush of a Triple Crown race, you are completely, utterly swept up in the moment. All right, friends, let's crack open the heart of Secretariat's editing and pacing, because this is where the film really finds its rhythm. And it's a rhythm that gallops, sprints, and sometimes pauses just long enough to let you catch your breath before racing off again. The editing here is like the invisible hand that pulls you through the story, making sure you're never bored, never lost, and always emotionally locked in. Right from the start, the film's flow is smooth and purposeful. The editors, John Wright and Tim Squires, know they're working with a story that spans years, jumps between family drama, corporate struggles, and high-stakes races, and they stitch it all together with such finesse that it feels like one continuous, sweeping journey. The transitions between scenes aren't jarring, they glide, with smart visual cues and emotional beats that guide the audience naturally from one moment to the next. And when it comes to the racing scenes, the editing truly kicks into high gear. These sequences are where you can feel the editors flexing their muscles, crafting a pulse-pounding pace that makes you grip the edge of your seat. The cuts are sharp, quick, and purposeful, jumping between the hooves pounding the dirt, the faces in the stands, the determined jockey crouched low, and the clock ticking down. The tension ramps up beautifully, because the editing knows exactly how long to hold a shot, when to cut away, and when to let the moment stretch just a little longer to keep you gasping. You can feel your heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the scene. And that's not by accident, it's masterful control over the film's tempo. But here's the brilliant part. The editors don't treat the whole film like it's a race. They know when to slow things down, when to linger on Penny's personal struggles, when to let the quiet moments breathe. Between the big, flashy races, you get these beautifully paced emotional beats. Penny reflecting on her father's legacy, facing tough choices at home, sharing small but meaningful interactions with Lucien or her children. These slower scenes don't drag, they enrich. They give the audience time to reconnect with the characters, to process the stakes, and to prepare for the next big surge of energy. There are no sloppy or rushed sections, no sudden lurches forward that leave the audience scrambling to keep up. Even when the film covers major time jumps, like training montages or moving through the racing season, the editing handles them gracefully, using visual and musical cues to keep the narrative smooth and the emotional thread intact. You always know where you are in the journey, and that sense of clarity keeps the film engaging from start to finish. The emotional impact of the editing is especially powerful in key moments, like the final Belmont Stakes race. Here, the editors stretch out time just enough to heighten the drama, using slow motion, cross-cutting, and tight close-ups to make you feel the gravity of the moment. You're not just watching a horse win a race, you're experiencing the culmination of everything Penny, Lucien, the jockey, and the horse have worked for. The rhythm of the editing pulls you right into that emotional payoff, making sure the victory feels earned, overwhelming, and deeply satisfying. The overall pacing of Secretariat keeps you hooked because it knows how to balance action with emotion, spectacle with intimacy, and tension with release. The editors don't rush the character arcs or the story beats, but they also don't let the film stall or meander. It moves forward with purpose, with a steady, building momentum that mirrors the incredible journey of Secretariat himself, starting strong, hitting its stride, and then charging to the finish line with breathtaking force. Every cut, every transition, every carefully timed moment works together to keep you immersed, invested, and completely swept up in the ride. Let's dive deeper into the heart of the Secretariat soundtrack and score, because this is where the emotional power of the film really comes to life. Nick Glennie-Smith's composition is the perfect companion to the story, complementing every race, every decision, and every character's journey with incredible subtlety and impact. If the visuals capture the majesty of Secretariat's runs, the score makes you feel the weight of every hoofbeat, the tension of every race, and the hope in every character's heart. The music in Secretariat doesn't just play a background role. It's an emotional guidepost that takes us on the journey. Early on, when Penny begins to take charge of the family farm, there's a quiet but determined theme that reflects her inner resolve. Glennie-Smith's use of strings here is soft, almost wistful, but there's an underlying sense of rising action. The music helps you feel Penny's conflict, her desire to prove herself, and the weight of the task ahead. It's like the score is whispering, this is the moment of transformation. The pacing of the score here is slow and steady, building with each step Penny takes towards embracing her role in the racing world. This track isn't pushing you to feel something overtly, it's pulling you gently, almost like you're walking with Penny herself. When the stakes grow higher, the music shifts to match that. The motifs begin to reappear, evolving as Penny's character does. You'll hear a more powerful, expansive version of the earlier theme, marking her growth and confidence. And then, when Secretariat enters the picture, the score takes on a new, thrilling energy. The race scenes are the real highlight here, and the music works hand in hand with the visuals to bring the full weight of the action to life. As Secretariat charges down the track, the score surges with a rhythmic intensity that mimics the pounding hooves of the horse. The strings build into a cascade of energy, and you can almost feel the power and speed of the horse coursing through the music itself. There's a sense of urgency and breathless excitement in these moments, but it's never chaotic or overwhelming. The music maintains its elegance while capturing the raw force of the race. It never feels like it's out of sync with the action. Rather, it feels as if the music is synchronized with every gallop, every turn, every burst of energy. The race sequences are particularly masterful because Glennie-Smith's music doesn't just focus on the speed and spectacle. There are quieter, reflective moments woven in, like the pauses between the races where Penny is forced to take stock of the risks she's taken, the choices she's made. These moments are often accompanied by simple, intimate piano lines, which contrast the sweeping intensity of the race scenes and give the film a nice balance. The shifts between these highs and lows are expertly timed, and the score mirrors the fluctuations in the narrative, adding emotional depth without overshadowing the characters. Speaking of emotional depth, the score is built with a sense of continuity, using recurring motifs to signal not only the passing of time, but also the growth and evolution of the characters. There's a theme that represents Secretariat's journey, a triumphant melody that emerges during pivotal moments, such as when he wins the Preakness or the Belmont Stakes. When this melody returns, you feel the power of Secretariat's victory, not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional journey that has been building to this point. These motifs help to tie the story together, offering a sense of cohesion and weight to the narrative. The music becomes a kind of emotional anchor, pulling all the threads of the story together and giving it a sense of unity and purpose. And then there's the use of silence, which is often just as impactful as the music itself. In some of the film's most intense moments, such as the final stretch of the Belmont Stakes or Penny's private moments of reflection, the music drops away entirely. What you're left with are the raw sounds of the race, the pounding hooves, the roaring crowd, the thundering pulse of Secretariat's heart. This silence is deliberately used to create a space for the viewer to feel the tension and the significance of the moment without the music taking over. It's in these quiet moments where the music does come back, swelling with triumph, that the emotional payoff hits even harder. The silence allows you to feel the weight of the journey before the score returns to give you that final emotional release. Glennie Smith's score also smartly avoids being too overtly manipulative. It doesn't force you to feel what you're supposed to feel in every moment. Instead, it creates a soundscape that breathes with the film, allowing the characters, their struggles, and the victories to resonate on their own terms. The music never feels like a distraction or an afterthought. It's always integral to the experience, helping to deepen the impact of every pivotal moment without stealing the spotlight. Whether it's the swelling, triumphant themes during the race scenes or the more delicate, reflective pieces that underscore the personal challenges Penny faces, the music works seamlessly with the story. In short, the soundtrack and score of Secretariat don't just accompany the film. They amplify it, giving it a musical heartbeat that matches the intensity of the racing world and the emotional stakes of Penny's journey. It's a score that knows when to ride the wave of excitement, when to pull back and let you breathe, and when to return with a rush of emotional power that makes the victories feel all the more meaningful. It's the perfect blend of subtlety and grandeur, creating a rich sonic landscape that deepens the story and elevates the entire cinematic experience. All right, let's dive deep into the heart of Secretariat and pull out some of the big, bold themes that make this film resonate long after the credits roll. It's not just a movie about a horse racing legend. It's about overcoming obstacles, defying expectations, and the power of believing in something bigger than yourself. These aren't just the usual sports movie tropes, though. Secretariat brings them to life with a raw and honest energy that feels both timeless and incredibly human. At its core, the film explores the theme of perseverance in the face of adversity. Penny Chenery, played with such quiet determination by Diane Lane, is a woman navigating a world that is skeptical of her, simply because she's a woman in a man's world. The odds are stacked against her. Her father's stables are in financial disarray. She's juggling family duties, and the racetrack is a male-dominated arena where she constantly has to prove her worth. But Penny's story is one of relentless belief. She doesn't have a sure thing going into this journey. All she has is the conviction that Secretariat is something special, and that if she trusts him, the rest will follow. It's a theme of faith in both her horse and herself, and how sometimes you have to bet everything on an impossible dream. Then, there's the theme of challenging the status quo. Penny's determination to not only enter the racing world, but to change the way things are done, even when everyone doubts her, speaks to a broader message about breaking down barriers. Whether it's battling corporate power structures or wrestling with gender norms, Penny is a trailblazer. The film does a beautiful job of showing how, in the face of a world that tells her no, she continues to push, to fight, and to make space for something new. It's inspiring without being preachy, showing how one person's conviction can spark change. This theme is powerful, especially when you consider the time period in which the film is set, the 1970s, when women were still finding their place in many fields, particularly one as old school as horse racing. Penny's journey isn't just about winning races. It's about claiming a space for herself and for all women who have ever been told they couldn't. There's also a fascinating exploration of legacy and what it means to leave something behind. Penny's connection to her father's legacy is central to the film. It's not just about keeping the family business alive. It's about honoring his dreams and proving that his vision wasn't in vain. The pressure she faces is immense because she's not just trying to win races, she's trying to live up to something larger, a family tradition that has faltered. Secretariat then becomes the embodiment of that legacy. As Penny fights for him, she's also fighting for the idea that greatness can come from persistence, vision, and an unwavering belief in what's possible. The film reminds us that legacy isn't just about what we inherit, but about what we create and pass on to others. It's about carrying the torch, even when the world tries to put it out. Of course, no story about a horse racing legend would be complete without a nod to the idea of what it takes to be a champion. Secretariat isn't just a horse, he's the embodiment of raw, untapped potential. The film constantly plays with the idea of greatness, what it takes to unlock it, how it shows itself in the world, and the sacrifices it demands. Secretariat's astonishing wins aren't just about speed or talent. They're about something deeper. It's about the connection between a person, Penny, and a being, the horse, that is so powerful, so perfectly in sync that it defies all expectations. The message here is that greatness often comes from the most unexpected places and people. It's about trusting the process, believing in something bigger than yourself, and putting in the work, even when everyone else thinks it's impossible. And then there's the theme of teamwork, which might not be as obvious, but it's there. Penny doesn't win this battle alone. She has her family, her jockey, her trainer, and a whole team of supporters behind her. Every victory, every win, is a collective effort, and the film beautifully illustrates how it takes a village to raise a champion. There's a wonderful sense of camaraderie, especially between Penny and Lucien, her seasoned trainer. Their partnership is built on mutual respect, belief, and an unspoken understanding that they're in this together. The film subtly explores how teamwork is a key ingredient in any great success. It's not just about one person pushing forward, but about those around you lifting you up when the path seems impossible. What's remarkable is that these themes don't feel forced. They aren't just talking points that the movie is trying to shove down your throat. Instead, they're woven organically into the fabric of the story. Penny's journey isn't just a path to victory. It's a journey of personal growth, of breaking barriers, of creating something lasting. Every theme is earned by the story, by the characters, and by the moments that resonate. The film doesn't feel preachy or heavy-handed. It lets the themes emerge naturally, allowing the audience to find their own meaning in the story. And in a way, the themes of Secretariat, perseverance, breaking barriers, legacy, greatness, and teamwork are universal. They're the kind of ideas that stay with you long after you've left the theater or turned off your TV. These are the messages that don't just apply to racing or sports. They apply to anyone who's ever had a dream, faced down adversity, or been told they couldn't. It's a story that encourages you to look at your own life and think, what's my Secretariat? What's the impossible dream I'm willing to bet everything on? That's the magic of this film. It's not just about a horse. It's about what's possible when you refuse to give up. All right, let's talk about the magic that makes Secretariat's races so jaw-droppingly thrilling, the visual effects and CGI. But here's the twist. Secretariat doesn't rely on CGI as much as you might think for its action-packed sequences. Instead, the film employs a blend of practical effects, solid cinematography, and just enough digital magic to bring the races to life without ever feeling artificial. It's a clever, subtle use of technology that allows the story to shine without distracting from the characters or the emotional stakes. When you watch the race scenes, it's clear that the filmmakers didn't just plop in digital horses galloping through a green screen backdrop. No, the visual effects here are seamless, carefully designed to enhance the real, raw spectacle of horse racing. The filmmakers went to great lengths to ensure that the races felt real, powerful, and full of grit. Much of what you see on screen during the races is practical. The horses were filmed at actual racetracks, with real trainers, jockeys, and crews on hand. This gives the races a sense of authenticity that CGI would have had a hard time replicating on its own. The horses are in motion, the crowd is alive with energy, and you're right there in the thick of it, feeling the pounding hooves and the rising tension. Now, don't get me wrong, digital effects do make an appearance. There are moments where CGI is used to enhance the speed and power of Secretariat. The film makes subtle use of digital effects to show just how extraordinary Secretariat's performances were. When he stretches his legs and surges ahead, the CGI is used to accentuate the sense of him flying across the track, moving faster than any horse has ever moved before. But here's the key. It never feels like it's taking over the scene. It's not about showing off the tech for tech's sake. Instead, the digital effects are used to emphasize the grandeur of the moment, to amplify the feeling of sheer speed and power without stealing focus. When Secretariat makes his legendary moves, the CGI is like a brushstroke on a painting. It enhances the experience, but it doesn't dominate the narrative. There are also moments where CGI and practical effects blend so smoothly you might not even realize it's happening. For example, when the camera zooms in on Secretariat's face as he's about to make a final push in the Belmont Stakes, you might notice some digital enhancements, perhaps making his eyes seem even more intense or highlighting his breath as he runs. It's not overdone or exaggerated. Instead, it deepens the emotional connection to the horse, making the viewer feel like they're truly inside Secretariat's head as he powers forward. And let's not forget the smaller but equally important visual effects. The digital crowds, the sweeping aerial shots, and the carefully composed shots of the track. In these cases, the effects blend seamlessly with the practical action, creating a grand stage for Secretariat's triumphs. You never feel taken out of the film, or like you're watching a special effects show. Instead, the technology serves the story by enhancing the immersion. One of the coolest things about Secretariat is how it uses visual effects to support the pacing and drama. Think about how the scenes are framed. There are moments where the camera is right up close to the action, almost making you feel like you're sitting on Secretariat's back. These moments feel very grounded and intimate. But when the race reaches its climax, the film pulls back, using wider shots and sometimes digital enhancements to show just how massive the track is, just how many people are watching, just how huge the moment is. These effects are designed not to overwhelm, but to amplify the scale of the story, to make you feel that what's happening on screen is something beyond ordinary. One thing that could have been a potential pitfall for a film like Secretariat is when the race scenes risk feeling like a CGI-heavy spectacle that doesn't quite fit into the film's grounded world. But the filmmakers here seem to have learned from the mistakes of other movies. They kept the visual effects restrained enough to maintain a sense of realism, which is crucial when you're telling a story that's rooted in real events. In a way, the effects are almost invisible. They're there to make the film more immersive, to enhance your experience without ever pulling you out of the world they've created. The combination of practical and digital effects ensures that the viewer is always in the moment. When Secretariat speeds ahead, you feel that explosive energy, but when he's in those quiet, intimate moments with Penny, the film's visual choices keep things grounded. It's the perfect balance, and one that allows you to feel the weight of the races, but also the emotional stakes, in a way that doesn't rely on flashy effects or excessive digital manipulation. What the film does best in terms of visual effects is enhance the narrative without overshadowing it, allowing the real heart of the story, the people, the relationships, the journey, to remain front and center. The result is a film that feels like a true-to-life depiction of history, with just enough digital sparkle to make the magic of Secretariat's victories feel larger than life. Let's talk about the world Secretariat creates, and how the settings and production design make everything feel so grounded in reality. The film set design and locations do a fantastic job of building a world that feels authentic and vibrant, pulling you into the gritty, high-stakes world of horse racing and family business. It's not just about having horses and racetracks. It's about immersing the audience in a place that feels lived in, with a sense of history and purpose. The film opens with shots of the Chenery family farm, and right away, you're hit with a sense of the place's age, its history, and its weight. The farm is more than just a backdrop. It's a character in its own right, and it tells a story all by itself. From the worn, rustic barn doors to the sprawling fields that stretch out in every direction, there's a sense of hard work and endurance here. These aren't glamorous, pristine settings, they're gritty and real, which helps the film avoid any hint of Hollywood gloss. The farm feels like it's been through its own set of challenges, just like the Chenery family. These locations help set the stage for Penny's struggle to keep the farm afloat, adding a layer of authenticity to her journey. You can almost feel the dust in the air and the weight of every decision Penny makes as she walks through these spaces. Then there's the racetrack, and this is where the film really makes the most of its locations. From the well-worn grandstands to the manicured tracks, everything about the racing scenes feels real and lived in. The film does a great job of capturing the size and scope of the tracks, with sweeping shots that take in the full expanse of the racecourse. The grandstands aren't just a place where people sit. They're filled with tension, anticipation, and excitement. The crowd roars as Secretariat makes his move, and you feel the pulse of the track beneath your feet, almost as if you're part of the scene. These locations aren't just about showing off fancy buildings or beautiful scenery. They're integral to the film's narrative, enhancing the tension and thrill of the races. But it's not all just about the racecourse. The way the film uses the office spaces, the stables, and the training areas all work together to build a sense of the real, working world of horse racing. The stables, for instance, have an authentic, gritty feel. You can almost smell the hay, the leather, the scent of the horses themselves. These aren't the sterile, polished horse barns you might imagine. They're a little rough around the edges, filled with tools, old equipment, and the quiet hum of a place that's been in use for generations. The lighting in these spaces adds to that authenticity. It's often low and warm, casting shadows that speak to the hard work and sweat that goes into caring for the animals. The production design also excels in creating a sense of time and place. The costumes, for example, help situate us in the 1970s. Penny's wardrobe, in particular, tells a subtle story of her transformation throughout the film. She starts out in more conservative, business-like attire, but as she steps into her power and takes control of the farm, her clothes become more bold, more daring. This mirrors her own arc as she begins to believe in herself and her ability to lead. The racetrack itself, with its gleaming jockey silks and the frenetic energy of the crowd, feels alive and vibrant, providing a sharp contrast to the quieter, more intimate spaces like the farm. Another key element of the production design is how the film uses the spaces around Penny and Secretariat to highlight the emotional stakes. For example, the office where Penny makes some of her biggest decisions is filled with stacks of papers and old books. It feels cluttered and full of pressure. There's an underlying tension in these locations because they're places where important, often life-altering choices are being made. You get the sense that every room is a space where time is running out, where the weight of Penny's decisions is bearing down on her, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The locations also serve to highlight the contrast between the world of the Chenery farm and the world of the high-powered, fast-paced racetrack. Penny, at first, feels out of place in the world of racing. The sleek, polished image of the racetrack, with its shiny cars and perfectly dressed owners, is in stark contrast to the humble, rough-around-the-edges feel of the farm. This contrast enhances the film's narrative arc. Penny's transformation from someone who is doubted to someone who commands the respect of everyone around her. The racetrack's glamour settings push her, forcing her to rise to the occasion and challenge everything about herself and the world around her. Even the grand, sweeping shots of the Belmont Stakes track at the film's climax are expertly used to add depth and tension to the story. The track, wide and open, becomes a battlefield for Penny's greatest triumph, and the film uses these large, open spaces to convey just how much is at stake. It's not just a race, it's the culmination of everything Penny has worked for, and the set design helps to heighten that tension. One of the film's cleverest tricks is how the locations, from the quiet, secluded farm to the bustling racetrack, are never just settings. They are extensions of the characters' journeys. Penny's evolution is mirrored in the spaces she occupies, from the humble farm to the lavishness of the racecourse. Each location tells us something new about her, about Secretariat, and about the world they're trying to conquer. The sets aren't just decorative. They're crucial to the emotional impact of the story, and they help bring Secretariat's world to life in a way that feels immediate and real. These settings provide the perfect backdrop to Penny's journey, a world that's tough, gritty, and full of possibility. When you think of Secretariat, you might not immediately think about its dialogue, but trust me, The script is one of the film's secret weapons. It's not just about what's being said, but how it's said. The dialogue in this film is sharp, poignant, and, when it needs to be, full of heart. You're going to find yourself remembering certain lines long after the credits roll. Not because they're flashy or overly dramatic, but because they resonate with the film's core message of perseverance, family, and courage. Let's talk about Penny Chenery, played by Diane Lane. Her character has some of the best lines in the film. The way the script builds her arc through dialogue is nothing short of brilliant. Early on, Penny's words are a reflection of her doubt and inexperience. She's stepping into a world that she doesn't fully understand, and her dialogue reflects that. There's a noticeable shift in her speech as she becomes more confident. As her voice grows stronger, so does the way she speaks. Her lines are often full of self-assurance, and you can feel her transformation through the way she uses words to assert herself. But here's the thing, it's never over the top. The writing doesn't push her too far. It's subtle, like the gradual building of a storm. Penny's lines often carry weight, but they're never rushed. Her quiet strength is communicated in the way she chooses her words carefully, making each one count. Now, let's not forget about the sharp wit sprinkled throughout the script. There's a certain dry humor that runs through the film, especially when you look at the banter between Penny and her team. It's the kind of humor that sneaks up on you. It's not loud, but it's there in the way characters deflect tension or share a quick laugh in the face of adversity. It gives the film a sense of authenticity, showing that even in the high-stakes world of horse racing, there's room for human connection and a bit of levity. Take the scenes with Lucy and Lauren John Malkovich, Secretariat's trainer, who brings his own unique brand of humor to the table. Lucian's dialogue is often laced with sharp remarks and funny one-liners that make him stand out as a character. It's this subtle, yet brilliant, humor that balances out the heavier moments in the film, preventing it from ever feeling too dark or too serious. But it's not all about wit and humor. Secretariat also excels at delivering those emotionally charged lines that stick with you. There are moments where the dialogue cuts right to the heart of the film's core themes, like when Penny is trying to convince others that Secretariat is the one to bet on, or when she's talking to her family about what's at stake. These aren't just conversations. These are pivotal moments in the film that propel Penny's journey forward. And the dialogue here is elevated by the actors' performances, which really make you believe every word being spoken. One of the standout moments in the film comes toward the end, when Penny is standing at the Belmont Stakes, looking out at Secretariat as he prepares for the race. She says, "I don't know if I can do this, but I do know that we have one shot." It's a line that's both simple and profound. You feel Penny's vulnerability in this moment, and you realize that everything she's been working toward has come down to this. The weight of the line isn't lost on the audience, and it encapsulates her emotional journey. She's no longer the unsure woman who inherited a farm. She's become someone who is fully in control of her fate. This line sticks with you because it's a universal feeling, the idea that sometimes all you have is one shot at something, and whether or not you succeed isn't as important as making the attempt. But the film also nails those small, quieter moments of dialogue that help flesh out the supporting characters. For example, the relationship between Penny and her husband, Jack, James Cromwell, is built through these tender, sometimes awkward exchanges. Jack doesn't say much, but the few words he does speak are carefully chosen. There's a lot said in those brief moments of silence, like when Jack says, "You're stronger than you think," and you can feel the unspoken support and love behind the words. The dialogue in these quieter moments adds a layer of intimacy to the film, grounding the big, high-stakes race sequences in real human relationships. Let's not forget the importance of the film's villainous figures, the corporate suits, and the people who try to dismiss Penny's ability to run the farm. Their lines often serve as a stark contrast to Penny's more grounded dialogue. Their words are filled with condescension and disbelief, reflecting the entrenched attitudes that Penny has to fight against. The contrast between their dialogue and hers helps underscore the depth of her struggle. It's in these exchanges that we see just how far Penny has come. She's no longer intimidated by the dismissive remarks of others. Instead, she meets their words with strength, subtly pushing back against their assumptions. And finally, let's talk about the script structure. While it's not overtly flashy in terms of dialogue, Secretariat shines through its ability to keep the conversation natural and real. The conversations flow effortlessly, never feeling forced or heavy-handed. Even the more dramatic moments, where the characters face seemingly insurmountable odds, never feel like they're just delivering a speech for the sake of it. The dialogue serves the characters' motivations, and as a result, it feels entirely authentic. Whether it's Penny standing up for herself in a boardroom or Lucian offering one of his classic sarcastic quips, the script weaves all these moments together in a way that feels true to the world the film has created. There's something about the dialogue in Secretariat that feels like a well-crafted performance in itself. The words aren't just spoken, they're lived, and you can tell. The script gives each character their own voice, their own rhythm, and it lets their personalities shine through. The dialogue never feels extraneous, it's always working towards a greater purpose, whether it's to build character, deepen relationships, or add emotional weight to the stakes. These carefully chosen words are part of what makes Secretariat such an emotionally resonant experience. The lines linger in your mind long after the film is over, and they're part of what makes this horse racing epic so memorable. When you think of a sports drama like Secretariat, you probably have a few ideas in mind. It's the underdog story, the triumph of the human spirit, the inspirational tale of a horse racing to greatness. But what's interesting about Secretariat is how it takes those well-worn genre conventions and not only follows them but elevates them. It's not just about a horse running faster than the competition. It's about the people behind the horse, the determination, the grit, and the passion. While Secretariat may hit some familiar beats, it doesn't fall into the trap of becoming a formulaic, predictable movie. Instead, it gives those beats a fresh spin, blending action, drama, and a bit of humor to create a sports film that feels both timeless and immediate. First off, let's talk about the structure of the genre. Sports films often follow a well-established template. An underdog rises against the odds, faces setbacks, and ultimately triumphs. Secretariat doesn't shy away from that formula, but it adds a layer of complexity by focusing not just on the horse's journey, but also on the emotional and psychological journey of Penny Chenery. It's a race not just against other horses, but against societal expectations, gender roles, and self-doubt. Penny's transformation from a hesitant housewife to a determined, self-assured businesswoman who takes control of her family's legacy is the true heart of the story. This brings an interesting dynamic to the genre, as the focus isn't just on the action of the race, but on the drama unfolding behind the scenes. It's this deeper look into the emotional lives of the characters that elevates Secretariat beyond the typical sports movie. Now, let's talk about the suspense and action. A lot of sports movies rely heavily on their final climactic moments, and Secretariat certainly does that. But it also does it in a way that keeps the audience on the edge of their seat throughout the entire journey. The racing scenes are thrilling, but what's key here is how the film builds up to those moments. Every race feels like it's part of a larger, almost metaphysical journey where you can feel the weight of every stride. The suspense isn't just about who's going to win. It's about whether Penny can continue to fight against the doubters and push forward despite the challenges that keep mounting. The action is, of course, centered around the races, but it's balanced with quieter moments that allow the drama and character development to shine. That's something the film does really well. It knows when to push forward with adrenaline-pumping action and when to slow down and dig deep into the emotional stakes. The film also excels in balancing humor and drama. A lot of sports dramas can feel overly heavy, but Secretariat manages to inject just the right amount of humor to lighten the mood. Lucien Lauren, the quirky trainer played by John Malkovich, brings a touch of sarcastic wit that keeps things from getting too bogged down in sentimentality. His character is a great counterbalance to the more serious aspects of Penny's journey, and their interactions are some of the film's most entertaining moments. Malkovich's deadpan delivery adds a layer of humor that feels completely natural, making him one of the most enjoyable characters to watch. This blend of humor with the more intense, dramatic moments helps create a well-rounded narrative that doesn't rely too heavily on either extreme. But here's the real magic: the way Secretariat plays with genre conventions and subverts expectations. It's easy to assume that the film is going to be a typical man versus the system narrative, where the protagonist, in this case, Penny has to overcome insurmountable odds to prove herself. While that's certainly part of the story, the film doesn't just focus on Penny as a single, heroic figure. Instead, it also paints a broader picture of the power of family, teamwork, and trust. Penny may be the one leading the charge, but she's not doing it alone. The film's handling of this team dynamic is refreshing, as it reminds us that success, especially in the world of horse racing, is never a solo effort. It's about the people who support you, who believe in you, and who are willing to help you succeed, even when the world seems determined to stop you. The film also avoids the cliché of presenting Penny's struggle as a battle of the sexes narrative. Yes, Penny is often the only woman in the room, and yes, she faces discrimination and doubt because of her gender. But the film doesn't hammer this point home too hard. Instead, it simply shows Penny as a capable, determined leader, letting her actions speak louder than any overt commentary on sexism. It's a subtle but effective way of saying that gender should not be an obstacle to success, and by not belaboring this theme, the film feels more authentic and less preachy. Another element that Secretariat handles well is the pacing. The film knows when to push forward with action and when to slow down and let the emotional beats breathe. The race scenes are taut with tension, and you can practically feel the dirt flying as the horses pound the track. But it's the slower moments, the ones where Penny is wrestling with doubt or struggling to keep her family's farm afloat, that truly ground the film. The pacing never feels rushed, and while there's a clear trajectory toward the big race, the film takes its time to build up the characters and the emotional stakes. The balance between action, suspense, humor, and drama keeps the film from ever feeling one-dimensional, making it an engaging watch from start to finish. In terms of genre conventions, Secretariat doesn't shy away from the typical beats of a sports movie, but it doesn't blindly follow them either. Instead, it introduces fresh ideas that make the familiar feel new. The focus on Penny's character development, the balance between humor and drama, and the way the film highlights the importance of family and teamwork all set it apart from other sports dramas. While it may not completely reinvent the wheel, Secretariat certainly puts its own unique spin on the genre, and that's what makes it stand out. So, while the film delivers the expected moments of triumph and glory, it also offers something deeper, a richer exploration of what it takes to succeed, not just in racing, but in life. Secretariat isn't just a feel-good sports movie about a horse that defies the odds. It's also a subtle commentary on the times and the culture in which it was made. On the surface, it's easy to get swept up in the incredible story of the legendary Racehorse. But if you look a little closer, the film is also addressing some deeper, more significant issues, especially concerning gender roles, family dynamics, and the undercurrents of power in the professional world. First off, let's talk about gender. Penny Chenery's struggle is central to the movie, and it's impossible to ignore the social commentary woven throughout her journey. When Penny takes control of her family's farm, she faces skepticism not just from outsiders, but from her own family members. Her husband Jack, James Cromwell, is supportive, but there's an underlying sense that he believes it's a man's world and that women just don't belong in the boardrooms or the racetracks. Even within the male-dominated horse racing industry, Penny's decisions are constantly questioned, and she has to prove herself in ways that a male counterpart never would. This theme is handled with nuance, though. Rather than turning Penny into a symbol of female empowerment for the sake of it, the film focuses on her inner strength and determination, showing how her grit and work ethic are what ultimately set her apart. What's refreshing is that the movie doesn't hit you over the head with feminism or gender equality. It doesn't need to. Penny's journey is proof that success isn't about fighting a cultural battle, but about following your own path, no matter the gender bias you may face. The film doesn't make it a point to overly dwell on the societal limitations placed on women at the time, but instead, it lets Penny's achievements speak for themselves. This way, the movie feels more authentic and relatable. Penny isn't trying to change the world. She's just trying to do what's right for her family and, ultimately, her horse. Her success is a quiet act of defiance, and the film lets that message resonate without being preachy. Then there's the portrayal of family and traditional values. In many ways, Secretariat is also about the clash between old school values and New World thinking. Penny comes from a family where things are done a certain way, and there's a strong sense of duty to maintain the legacy of her father's farm. When Penny steps into her father's shoes, she's not just managing the farm. She's also managing her family's legacy, and that responsibility carries a lot of weight. But she's also in the middle of a rapidly changing world. The way the film handles this shift from a traditional hands-on approach to a more business-driven, corporate style of management speaks to the larger cultural conversation happening in the world during the 1960s and 1970s. This tension is especially clear in the moments when Penny clashes with her father's old business partners and others in the racing world. The film shows us how the once stable, traditional systems of the past are being challenged by modernity and progress. Penny's progressive vision for the farm is seen as radical by some, and it's this contrast between tradition and innovation that adds an interesting layer to the film. She's not just dealing with gender bias. She's also challenging established systems that are resistant to change. This speaks to a broader cultural shift in America, as the 1960s and 1970s were times of significant social change, with movements for civil rights, women's liberation, and the push for greater equality all gaining momentum. Secretariat doesn't overtly address these movements, but they hang in the background of Penny's journey, adding an extra dimension to her character's arc. The movie also touches on the theme of American exceptionalism, particularly when it comes to sports. Horse racing, like many traditional American sports, has long been a symbol of grit, determination, and the pursuit of greatness. Secretariat taps into this national pride and the mythos of the American dream, positioning Secretariat not just as a great horse, but as a symbol of American exceptionalism. The film is careful not to turn this into a jingoistic message, but it's clear that Secretariat's feats are portrayed as something larger than just the horse. It's about the culmination of hard work, talent, and the pursuit of excellence, themes that resonate deeply with the American spirit. What's even more fascinating is how the film touches on class dynamics. Penny's rise to prominence in the horse racing world isn't just about overcoming gender bias. It's also about navigating the class divisions that exist within the industry. While Penny's family has money and resources, they don't belong to the high society of horse racing, which is populated by elite old money families. Her willingness to defy these social boundaries and fight for what she believes in is another subtle commentary on class and opportunity. The film doesn't make an overt statement about class inequality, but it's there in the subtext, highlighting the way that wealth and privilege can create invisible barriers that must be overcome. What's key in all of this is how the film never feels like it's forcing its cultural commentary onto the audience. The themes of gender, class, and tradition are woven naturally into the story of Secretariat and Penny's relationship with him. These aren't abstract political discussions, they're real struggles that Penny faces every day. And by focusing on her personal journey and her relationships with the people around her, Secretariat feels like a more grounded exploration of the challenges that women, in particular, face when trying to carve out a space for themselves in a male-dominated world. Even in its quieter moments, the film subtly makes a statement about the role of women in the workplace, the family, and society at large. It shows how Penny, like many women of the time, had to prove herself in a world that often viewed her as inferior, but it does so in a way that feels earned and not forced. There's an emotional authenticity to the way the film handles its social commentary, and that's what makes it so effective. The film doesn't feel like it's trying to preach a message. Instead, it simply tells the story of a woman who had to fight for what she believed in, and, in doing so, change the world of horse racing forever. So, in a way, Secretariat does more than just tell the story of a racehorse. It's a film that taps into the pulse of American society during a time of profound change, subtly addressing issues of gender, class, and cultural shifts. It manages to weave these themes in naturally, showing how one woman's journey intersects with larger societal currents, and it does so in a way that never feels heavy-handed. It's this delicate balance that makes the film's social and cultural commentary so effective and so lasting. The emotional power of Secretariat lies in its ability to connect with the audience on a deeply personal level, pulling on the heartstrings, rousing excitement, and even evoking a sense of triumph. The film knows when to play on the emotional beats and when to step back, allowing the moments of victory and loss to settle in with the audience, creating a bond that lasts long after the credits roll. Let's start with the heart of the story, Penny Chenery's journey. From the very beginning, the film establishes her as a woman who must contend with more than just the physical challenges of running a racehorse. She is navigating a world filled with doubts, from her family to the industry at large, and you can feel the weight of her responsibilities. The audience is drawn to her resilience, and with every setback she faces, the emotional connection only deepens. The moments where Penny fights to keep the farm afloat, where she stands firm in her decision to race Secretariat, all hit a powerful emotional chord. The tension in those scenes isn't just about whether Secretariat will win, but whether Penny will be able to prove to herself and everyone around her that she's capable of greatness. When Secretariat begins to show his true potential, the stakes skyrocket. Suddenly, the underdog isn't just the horse, it's Penny. There's a rawness in the way the film builds up these moments, using slow burn anticipation before the big races. Each time Secretariat surges ahead on the track, it's not just the horse that triumphs, it's Penny's belief in herself, her persistence, and her ability to overcome the expectations placed on her. The culmination of this journey comes during the final race, the 1973 Belmont Stakes, where, by the time Secretariat crosses the finish line, the audience has been through a roller coaster of emotions. You feel the tension, the hope, and the joy in every frame. And when Secretariat makes history with an impossible victory, it's not just a win for the horse, it's a win for Penny, for the women who feel underrepresented, and for anyone who has ever fought against the odds. But Secretariat doesn't only rely on the emotional highs of victory. It also gives you those moments of heartache that make the triumphs feel earned. The film doesn't shy away from showing the vulnerability of its characters. Penny's personal struggles, like the strained relationship with her husband and the loss of her father, bring real emotional weight to the story. These quieter, more somber moments set the stage for the explosive ones, making every victory that much more impactful. There's a genuine sense of catharsis when Penny finally gets the approval she's been seeking, not just from the men in the room, but from herself. And the audience feels it with her. Then there's the laughter. John Malkovich's performance as the eccentric trainer Lucien Lauren is a breath of fresh air in the midst of all the drama. His dry humor and sharp wit bring levity to the film, creating moments where the audience can catch their breath, smile, and enjoy the ride. His interactions with Penny are both comedic and endearing, and his chemistry with her creates a delightful contrast to the more intense, emotional scenes. Malkovich's character also provides a different kind of emotional engagement, not just laughter, but a sense of camaraderie, of shared belief in something bigger than the both of them. Throughout the film, there's an undercurrent of tension that keeps the audience on edge. The pacing of the story is expertly done, with peaks of excitement interspersed with reflective moments that invite the viewer to breathe and take in the emotional gravity of the journey. The build-up to the races, especially the iconic Belmont Stakes, is structured in a way that makes every second feel like a revelation. The soundtrack swells, the horses pound the track, and you're right there, living the race alongside the characters. The sheer excitement of those moments, paired with the emotional stakes, ensures that you're not just watching Secretariat, you're feeling it. The roar of the crowd, the pounding of the hooves, and the sweep of the camera create a visceral experience that brings a thrill unlike any other. And as Secretariat charges ahead, breaking records and silencing doubters, you can't help but cheer, feeling the collective joy of a nation behind this extraordinary horse. As for the lasting impact, Secretariat does something special. It doesn't just leave you feeling inspired in the moment, it invites reflection long after you've left the theater. It's one of those films you can't help but revisit, not just for the emotional highs, but to rediscover the nuances in Penny's character arc, the underlying themes of perseverance, and the quiet but powerful moments of personal growth. It's a movie that sparks conversation about gender roles, about family, about overcoming societal expectations. And it's a movie that makes you wonder about your own life. What is your personal race, and what do you need to do to overcome the obstacles in your way? For some, the film will invite laughter and joy every time, especially in the comedic moments. For others, it's the emotional resonance that will make them return again and again. The beauty of Secretariat is that it offers multiple layers of engagement, and no matter how many times you watch it, you'll always find something new to appreciate. Whether it's the heart-pounding races, the tender moments of personal growth, or the triumph over adversity, Secretariat never loses its ability to draw out strong emotions. It's a film that sticks with you, making you reflect on what it means to overcome the odds and how far passion and persistence can take you. When you look at Secretariat and compare it to other films in the sports drama genre, particularly those centered around real-life athletes and underdog stories, it's clear that this film shares many similarities with some of the classics, but it also stands apart in some unique ways. Films like Rudy, The Blind Side, and Remember the Titans come to mind, all of which focus on a singular character or team overcoming the odds and achieving greatness. In those films, the formula is familiar. You have a determined protagonist, struggles along the way, and a big payoff at the end. And while Secretariat certainly follows that same structure, it's the heart and the unique personal journey of Penny Chenery that sets this film apart. First off, Secretariat doesn't follow the usual blueprint of the lone athlete overcoming personal adversity. While there's certainly that element in the story of Secretariat, the heart of the film is more about the journey of a woman fighting to be taken seriously in a male-dominated world. Penny's story doesn't fit neatly into the typical sports movie formula of an athlete rising from obscurity. She's already well established in the horse racing world, but she's fighting her own battles behind the scenes. This makes the film stand out in its genre, as it focuses more on the human drama surrounding the racehorse rather than just the horse itself. Where films like Rudy or The Blind Side focus on individual athletes, Secretariat shifts the narrative to an underdog woman in a patriarchal industry, which feels fresh and different from many sports films of its time. In comparison to other horse racing films, Secretariat stands as a beacon of hope and triumph. Films like Seabiscuit and Dreamer are often brought up when discussing racing movies, and while they share the same animal-centered focus, Secretariat takes it a step further by making the horse's accomplishments a symbol of much broader themes. Seabiscuit is similarly about an underdog horse overcoming the odds, but Secretariat goes deeper into the human elements, particularly through Penny's character. While both films have their emotional beats, Secretariat has the added complexity of its social commentary and its focus on the rise of a woman in a male-dominated world, which gives it an edge in terms of narrative depth. Secretariat also brings in a more emotional, family-driven perspective. Where Seabiscuit is very much about a horse and his connection with his trainer and jockey, Secretariat is just as much about Penny's relationship with her family. There's a constant undercurrent of duty to her father, the tension with her husband, and the challenges of maintaining family loyalty while managing a business. In contrast, Seabiscuit focuses more on the relationships within the world of horse racing, leaving its family dynamics less explored. Secretariat, therefore, feels more personal and grounded in a sense of legacy, rather than simply focused on the pursuit of a trophy. Looking at the film through the lens of director Randall Wallace's filmography, Secretariat shares some thematic echoes with his previous work, particularly Braveheart. Both films dive deep into the concept of fighting for something larger than oneself, driven by passion and determination. In Braveheart, William Wallace's journey was about freedom and sacrifice, while in Secretariat, Penny's fight is about proving her worth in a male-dominated industry. The broader themes of resilience, legacy, and personal triumph carry over from Wallace's earlier work, but Secretariat presents a more intimate, family-oriented perspective. It's less about epic battles and more about personal battles, both internal and external, and it's this shift in focus that sets Secretariat apart from the more grandiose style of Braveheart. There's also a softness to Secretariat that you don't always find in Wallace's other films. While Braveheart and We Were Soldiers often have a more intense, action-driven tone, Secretariat is much quieter in its approach. It builds its emotional stakes gradually, offering moments of reflection and familial warmth that make the eventual victory that much sweeter. This slower, more reflective pacing is a departure from Wallace's typical filmmaking style, but works exceptionally well for this film, allowing the audience to fully invest in Penny's emotional journey without overwhelming them with constant action or heavy drama. And let's not forget the performances. The film does something that not all sports dramas manage to do. It blends the human and animal worlds seamlessly. While films like Seabiscuit made a star out of the horse, Secretariat also shines a spotlight on Diane Lane's portrayal of Penny. She doesn't just act as a support character to the horse, she is the emotional center of the film, and her performance elevates the entire narrative. She brings a depth and nuance to Penny's character that makes her journey feel authentic and real. When you compare this to other sports dramas, it's rare to see such a layered, human performance at the core of a movie that also has a famous animal star. When you compare Secretariat to similar films, it's clear that it's not just following the typical sports movie formula. It's adding layers of depth and emotional complexity that set it apart from the crowd. The focus on Penny Chenery's journey through a male-dominated industry, the rich family dynamics, and the blending of human and animal triumphs make Secretariat stand out. It may fit within the mold of the underdog sports movie, but it also redefines what that mold can be. It's a film that's about more than just racing. It's about breaking barriers, challenging expectations, and the quiet, powerful victories that come from within. When watching Secretariat, it's easy to get swept up in the races, the wins, and the emotional highs. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll notice that the film is rich with symbolism and metaphors, each adding a layer of meaning to the story and enhancing its broader themes. The symbolism in the film doesn't hit you over the head with obvious signs. Instead, it subtly enriches the narrative, making each victory feel even more significant and connected to something larger. Take Secretariat himself, for example. The horse is more than just a competitor on the racetrack. He symbolizes strength, perseverance, and the breaking of boundaries. Early in the film, there's a moment where Penny first realizes that Secretariat might just be capable of more than anyone expects. And it's at this point that the horse begins to take on a more symbolic role. As Secretariat surges forward, breaking records and defying expectations, he becomes the embodiment of the American dream. The idea that anything is possible, no matter how impossible it seems. The horse's extraordinary talent isn't just about winning races. It represents the triumph of the underdog, the ability to defy the odds and break free from the constraints of what society expects. Secretariat becomes a living metaphor for the pursuit of greatness, and as he crosses the finish line time and again, it feels as if he's not just winning a race. He's leading the charge for those who dare to dream big. Then there's Penny herself. Throughout the film, Penny's journey is paralleled with that of Secretariat's, and her personal growth is reflected in the horse's transformation. Her relationship with the horse is deeply symbolic, representing a woman coming into her own, finding her voice, and breaking free from the limits imposed by her family, society, and the world of horse racing. Her bond with Secretariat is one of mutual respect. The horse isn't just a tool for her success. He's an equal partner in her fight to be taken seriously in a male-dominated world. Every time she fights for him, you can see it as her fighting for her own place in that world. Her belief in him mirrors her growing belief in herself, and this becomes a key metaphor for self-empowerment and the courage to pursue what you want, even when the world doubts you. One of the recurring motifs in Secretariat is the presence of family. Penny's struggle is not just about the business or the horse, it's about her family. The constant tug-of-war between her duties as a daughter, a mother, and a wife symbolizes the balancing act many women face as they try to carve out a path for themselves in a world that often expects them to choose between personal ambition and familial responsibility. The farm itself, with its sprawling fields and stables, serves as both a literal and symbolic anchor for Penny. It's a place of heritage, responsibility, and struggle, but it's also a symbol of her roots, both where she's come from and where she's determined to go. The farm represents a legacy that Penny must both uphold and reshape to suit her own vision. There's also a powerful visual metaphor that runs through the film, the races themselves. The racetrack, with its oval shape, symbolizes a cycle, a never-ending loop that represents the continuous effort required to achieve greatness. Secretariat's incredible speed, his ability to break away from the pack, becomes a powerful metaphor for breaking out of these cycles, the kind that keep people trapped in expectations and limitations. The way the camera captures the races, focusing on the horses as they move around the track, highlights the tension between the desire to break free and the constant pull of the established order. It's a reminder that sometimes achieving greatness requires breaking free from the patterns and norms that hold you back. But perhaps one of the most telling symbols in the film is the connection between Penny and her father. The film opens with Penny taking over her father's farm, and throughout the story, his presence, even in his absence, is a guiding force. The final race, where Secretariat achieves an unbelievable victory, mirrors the kind of victory her father might have wanted to see. And in many ways, Penny's success is as much about fulfilling his legacy as it is about forging her own path. The farm is where the film's generational theme plays out most clearly. Penny's relationship with her father is steeped in respect, but also in her own desire to prove herself. As the film progresses, it's clear that Penny is not just continuing a legacy, she's redefining it, making her father's dream hers. The way the farm and the horses represent the passing of a torch from father to daughter is a key metaphor that drives the emotional weight of the story. There's also a subtle but important use of color throughout Secretariat that adds to its metaphors. In many of the key scenes, the use of green fields contrasts with the darker, stormy skies or the bright lights of the racetrack, representing the duality of growth and challenge. The green represents potential, new life, and hope, while the dark skies and the stormy weather symbolize the obstacles that Penny must overcome. These contrasts are often used to underscore moments where Penny faces critical decisions, highlighting the tension between the ideal and the real. And then, of course, there's the idea of speed itself. Secretariat's blazing fast times aren't just a spectacle. They're symbolic of the rapid pace at which progress happens when the conditions are right. The film plays with this idea of momentum, both literally on the racetrack and metaphorically in Penny's personal journey. Her moments of doubt and uncertainty give way to moments of acceleration, as she sheds the weight of societal expectations and moves forward with singular focus. The imagery of Secretariat racing towards the finish line is a powerful visual metaphor for the human drive to achieve greatness, and the relentless pursuit of a goal, no matter the cost. Secretariat uses all these symbols and metaphors not just to tell a story about a horse and his trainer, but to communicate a deeper message about breaking free from constraints. Secretariat doesn't fit neatly into the category of a franchise film, and the courage it takes to push beyond nor does it belong to a series. The hidden layers of meaning in the film enhance the storytelling, but it does carry the weight providing of a rich, shoulders, resonant it's a historical film that takes a deep dive into the real-life story of one of the greatest the way Penny's personal journey mirrors Secretariat's and the way it portrays the connection between family and legacy, and people involved, or the visual cues that reinforce the themes of progress and determination. The film immerses you in the 1970s every symbol is carefully placed to add to the emotional not just the grandeur of the races, but the personal dramas and broader societal shifts that were happening at the time. It's a perfect blend of personal story and historical significance. The accuracy of Secretariat in depicting the real events and people involved is key to its success. While, of course, a film like this is bound to take a few creative liberties for the sake of narrative flow, the heart of the story stays true to the real achievements of Secretariat and his team. From the outset, the film does a great job of showing the high stakes of the horse racing world, where fortunes are won and lost in a flash, and where legacy and reputation are everything. Secretariat's victory in the 1973 Triple Crown isn't just a race. It's the culmination of years of hard work, strategy, and a fair amount of risk. The film gives us a real sense of the time period, with the 1970s setting acting almost as a character in itself. The clothes, the music, the cars, it all serves to take the audience back in time to an era that, for many, feels far removed from the modern world. But more than just the setting, Secretariat captures the social dynamics and gender roles of the time. Penny Chenery, the film's central character, is navigating a world where women were not often given the chance to lead in fields like horse racing, which was traditionally dominated by men. This historical context adds an important layer to the film, highlighting the gender barriers that Penny had to break down in order to make history with Secretariat. It's not just about the races. It's about how a woman in a patriarchal industry fought for her place at the table. As far as historical accuracy goes, Secretariat does a commendable job of staying faithful to the key moments of the horse's career. The Triple Crown victories, the stakes of the races, the management of the farm, it all plays out in a way that feels grounded in reality. The film also does well to capture the personalities of the key figures involved, especially Penny Chenery. Diane Lane's portrayal of Penny is both tender and fierce, giving viewers a window into the real-life woman's determination and grace. The way Penny interacts with the people around her, from her family to the horse trainers, speaks volumes about the era's social and professional challenges, especially for women. While some elements of the film are condensed or altered for dramatic effect, the most important details, Secretariat's performance in the 1973 Belmont Stakes, his record-breaking time, and his legendary status, remain faithful to the historical record. The depiction of the family farm, the interactions between Penny and her father, and the emotional highs and lows that come with the challenges of managing a racehorse are all drawn from real life. However, the film doesn't shy away from emotional moments, sometimes taking liberties with the timeline or certain events to heighten the drama and build momentum. One of the key historical contexts that the film doesn't overlook is the racial and political landscape of the 1970s. While Secretariat is not explicitly a political film, it subtly incorporates the societal challenges of the time. The 1970s were a time of social upheaval, and the film touches on the ways in which Penny's rise in the racing world reflects a larger shift in women's roles in the workplace and in society. The challenges she faces as a woman in charge of a thoroughbred farm in a male-dominated world feel deeply rooted in the cultural and political changes that were taking place during that time. In a way, the film serves as a historical snapshot of not just horse racing, but also the evolving role of women in professional spaces, making it all the more significant for modern viewers. In terms of the horse racing aspect itself, Secretariat does an excellent job of making sure that racing fans and newcomers alike can appreciate the technicalities and the drama of the sport. The races are shot with an intensity that draws you in, making you feel the tension of every moment. The 1973 Belmont Stakes, where Secretariat cemented his place in history, is depicted with all the grandeur and excitement it deserves, while also giving you a glimpse of the inner workings of the racing industry. You get a sense of the strategy, the preparation, and the human effort behind each victory, which is a crucial part of the film's historical authenticity. For all its historical faithfulness, Secretariat isn't bogged down by an overabundance of dry facts or a reliance on historical jargon. The film doesn't overwhelm you with the intricacies of the horse racing world or bog down the plot with unnecessary historical details. Instead, it finds a perfect balance between historical accuracy and emotional storytelling, allowing the audience to connect with the human side of the story while also feeling the weight of the real-life events. The film's contribution to the historical narrative of Secretariat's career is significant not just for horse racing fans, but for anyone who loves a story of resilience, perseverance, and breaking barriers. Ultimately, while Secretariat isn't part of a larger franchise, it contributes to the broader narrative of inspiring true stories in sports cinema. It stands as a tribute not just to the horse and the victories, but to the human spirit that made them possible. The historical context isn't just a backdrop. It's integral to understanding why this story matters, both in terms of sports and in terms of the larger social shifts of the 1970s. The film does more than just tell the story of Secretariat's remarkable career. It places that story within a larger cultural and historical framework, making it feel relevant, poignant, and meaningful. When looking at the budget and box office performance of Secretariat, you get a fascinating glimpse into how Hollywood handles historical dramas and sports films. On the surface, a movie about a racehorse may not seem like it has the same mass appeal as big blockbusters or action-packed epics, but Secretariat was far from an underdog when it came to production quality and audience expectations. The film was made on a relatively modest budget for a major studio film, coming in at around $35 million. This isn't a huge sum compared to the big-budget spectacles we often see dominating the box office, but for a historical drama, especially one focused on a horse racing legend, it's a decent amount. Given the story's emotional depth, star power, and production value, it's easy to see how that budget was put to good use. The sets, locations, and period costumes were all meticulously crafted to give the film a sense of authenticity. The production value is high, with the racetrack scenes in particular standing out for their well-executed action and emotional intensity. The filmmakers clearly poured resources into making the races feel real, ensuring that the tension of each moment on the track came through with impact. While it wasn't a film packed with expensive CGI or effects-heavy sequences, it didn't need them. The drama of the story, supported by strong performances and a compelling narrative, carried the weight of the film's appeal. When it came to the box office, Secretariat saw a solid, if not spectacular, success. The film grossed about $60 million worldwide, meaning it made a modest profit on its $35 million budget. While not a major box office hit like some of the larger franchises of the time, the film did relatively well, especially considering its niche appeal. It was never going to draw in the same massive crowds as a superhero film or a fast-paced action thriller, but the strong word-of-mouth, critical praise, and its connection to true events ensured that it found an audience, particularly among those who enjoy inspirational stories, sports dramas, and true-life tales. Interestingly, Secretariat was also released at a time when sports films, particularly those based on real-life events, were making a bit of a comeback. Movies like The Blind Side and Invictus had proven that audiences were hungry for stories that mix sports with real human drama, and Secretariat tapped into that same vein. It wasn't just about a horse racing. It was about the incredible journey of a woman breaking barriers in a male-dominated world and leading a horse to greatness. This angle helped the film find its audience, especially among fans of sports, horse racing, and stories of underdogs overcoming the odds. The film's marketing played a big role in its box office performance. The studio's promotional campaign focused heavily on the emotional appeal of the story. It wasn't just about a horse, but about family, perseverance, and overcoming adversity. Diane Lane's star power as the lead helped as well, drawing in fans of her work, while the horse racing aspect piqued the interest of both sports enthusiasts and those looking for a heartfelt, family-friendly drama. The movie's trailers and posters emphasized the true story aspect, highlighting that Secretariat wasn't just a fictional tale, but a recounting of one of the most remarkable moments in American sports history. The marketing team successfully created an emotional hook, teasing the dramatic triumphs without giving away too much of the story, which helped build anticipation. However, Secretariat wasn't a film that relied solely on marketing buzz or huge opening weekend earnings to succeed. It benefited from positive word of mouth, as many viewers were drawn in by the heartfelt story and the solid performances. The movie found its audience over time, particularly in family-friendly markets, and it performed well on home video and streaming platforms after its theatrical run. Many viewers who might have missed it in theaters caught it on DVD or digital, which helped boost its earnings long after it had left the big screen. It's also important to note that Secretariat performed well in certain international markets, even though it was clearly geared toward American audiences who are more familiar with the legacy of Secretariat and horse racing. Still, the universal themes of determination and the underdog triumphing resonated with people beyond the U.S. as well, making the film feel relevant on a global scale. In terms of financial success, Secretariat wasn't a massive blockbuster by any stretch of the imagination, but it did its job. The film turned a modest profit and achieved a level of success that allowed it to be seen as a success for the genre, especially considering that historical dramas like this often face a more niche audience. The relatively small budget meant that it didn't need to pull in hundreds of millions to be considered a financial win. The film's earnings were more than enough to cover production costs and generate profit, and that's a win in the world of moderately budgeted historical dramas. The movie also has lasting cultural impact, particularly within the realm of sports films and true-life stories. While it wasn't the highest-grossing film of the year, Secretariat carved out a niche for itself as a feel-good, inspiring film that found favor with a wide range of audiences, from sports fans to those who just wanted a good story. Over the years, it has remained a go-to film for anyone seeking an uplifting story about triumph, making it a consistent performer in terms of home video sales and streaming views. In the end, Secretariat wasn't the kind of film that was going to set the box office on fire, but it was financially successful for what it was. Its marketing, solid performances, and the timeless nature of its story helped it earn a respectable return on investment and allowed it to leave a lasting impression on audiences. While it may not have been a breakout hit, it certainly found a place in the hearts of viewers, and that's the kind of success that isn't always reflected in box office numbers, but resonates long after the credits roll. If you're looking to dive into the world of Secretariat, you're in luck because there are a few ways to experience this heartfelt drama, depending on your preference for a classic movie night. First things first, while Secretariat made its mark in theaters when it was released back in 2010, it's not likely to be screening in theaters anymore. However, don't let that discourage you, because the film has found a comfortable home on several popular streaming platforms. If you're a fan of watching films from the comfort of your couch, this is the best option for you. Streaming services are probably your most convenient bet for catching Secretariat. Many viewers enjoy the flexibility of watching movies on demand without having to leave their house or deal with busy theaters. The film has been available on various streaming platforms like Disney Plus and Hulu in the past. So if you have access to these services, you might want to check there first. Disney Plus is especially a great option because the film is part of the studio's broader library of family-friendly and inspirational stories, which fits perfectly with Secretariat's uplifting narrative. The high-definition quality of streaming platforms also helps showcase the breathtaking cinematography and racing sequences in all their glory. For those who don't have streaming services or prefer a more traditional approach, you can always rent or purchase Secretariat digitally. It's available on platforms like Amazon Prime Video, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube Movies, where you can rent the film for a small fee or buy it for repeated viewings. This is a fantastic option if you're looking to own a digital copy of the movie, or if you just want to have it in your collection without committing to a subscription service. Now, if you're the kind of person who loves the theater experience, perhaps you're planning to revisit Secretariat for a special occasion, or you want to feel the emotional rush of those racing scenes on the big screen, it's worth checking out local theaters for any special re-releases or limited screenings. Occasionally, films with a lasting cultural impact or those based on true stories will have special runs, especially if there's a sporting event that ties into the film. So if you're feeling nostalgic or you just want to see the dramatic story of Secretariat's Triple Crown victories unfold on a giant screen, keep an eye on theater listings for any potential showings. It would definitely add an extra layer of excitement to those race scenes. Let's not forget about the DVD or Blu-ray option. For those who appreciate the tangible experience of owning a physical copy of the film, the DVD or Blu-ray of Secretariat remains a solid choice. Plus, if you go for the Blu-ray version, you get to enjoy the beautiful cinematography with crisp visuals and high-definition sound that really enhances the experience. This is a good option for movie buffs, collectors, or anyone who wants to enjoy the film at home with a higher quality viewing experience than what standard streaming might offer. No matter how you decide to watch Secretariat, each viewing method has its perks. Streaming provides convenience, digital rental or purchase gives you the flexibility of owning the film, and the Blu-ray/DVD offers an unbeatable quality experience for movie lovers. The best way to enjoy the film ultimately depends on your personal preferences and the viewing setup you have at home. But no matter how you watch, Secretariat remains an inspiring and heartwarming journey, with the thrill of horse racing and the resilience of Penny Chenery giving it a timeless appeal. So, whether you're curled up on the couch, hosting a movie night, or indulging in a film on the big screen, there's no wrong way to experience this cinematic triumph. Just get comfy, grab your popcorn, and let the story of Secretariat's greatness take you on a ride.